Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. It's not 100% official yet, but it's being reported that the UFC is close to finalizing a lightweight matchup between Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. And what an amazing fight. And again, it's not 100% official yet, but it looks like the fight that's going to be made. And I really think it's the only fight that makes sense. There's talk of it going down at Madison Square Garden in November, UFC 281. But there's also been some reports that Michael Chandler is asking for the fight to happen in December. So there's a chance that maybe it happens at UFC 282, or maybe if we get lucky, it could be a main event of a fight night. I think that's unlikely, but it's most likely going to happen at Madison Square Garden in November. And I wanted to make a video giving my reaction to this fight. I'm going to give you an early prediction for this fight. And also at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my best guess on what will be the main event of UFC 281 in November at Madison Square Garden, because I think this will be one of the biggest events of the year in November. So first off, my initial reaction to this fight was actually disappointment. And I know that sounds crazy, but I was really holding out hope looking at UFC 279 in September, the main event, Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. There being no quality fights on the card at all, nothing even pay-per-view worthy on the card right now. And I was really holding out hope that the UFC was going to book Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler as the co-main event of UFC 279, just to make that card a bit better, because right now it's just horrendous. So I was initially disappointed because I was like, you know, what are they going to do with UFC 279? It doesn't. I'm not holding my breath anymore. I don't know if they're adding anything else notable. I think they're just going to let that fight card be what it is, which is horrendous. Honestly, it's disgusting. But outside of that disappointment, I absolutely love this matchup between Poirier and Chandler. This was the only fight to make. Dustin Poirier is currently ranked number 2 in the UFC official rankings. Michael Chandler is ranked number 5. I mean, stylistically, you don't get a better fight than this. And I just thought it made so much sense. I've been talking about it in live streams for the past month or 2 months, really. And I just think right now for both guys, where they're at in their careers, in their UFC careers specifically, it just makes perfect sense. And this is a fan-friendly matchup. I mean, when is Chandler ever in a boring fight? If you have not seen his fights in Bellator against Eddie Alvarez, you need to go watch those fights. A lot of people maybe just found out about Michael Chandler in the last 2 years or so. You know, Michael Chandler has been in exciting fights for a long time, even when he was fighting over in Bellator when a lot of people necessarily weren't watching him. And Dustin Poirier, we know he's been in the UFC for ages, and he's never in a boring fight himself. And this is a fight that just stylistically on paper is an amazing matchup. I mean, Michael Chandler, one of the most explosive, fast, powerful guys in the entire division. He's very well-rounded. He has good wrestling. He has good jiu-jitsu, has decent striking. Then you have Dustin Poirier, who is so tough, who has amazing stamina, who has great boxing, who's super defensively responsible, who's just so well-rounded. He has good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, not the greatest wrestling, okay? We're going to talk about that in a minute. And, you know, both guys, this is a fight that I've fantasized about for a while because I really want to see these two guys fight each other. They both fought back on the Conor McGregor-Dustin Poirier 2 card when Poirier knocked out Conor McGregor. And in the co-main event, Chandler made his UFC debut and knocked out Dan Hooker. And a lot of people might not remember this. There's a reason that kind of Chandler and Poirier have had a back and forth in the past. And what happened is, when Chandler made his debut and knocked out Dan Hooker, and Dustin knocked out Conor McGregor in the main event, this was around the time Khabib had retired in October. This was in January, and it was still up in the air. Dana White was saying, you know, I'm trying to get Khabib to come back, but there was talk at this point in time of a vacant lightweight title. And there was even people saying, put it in the main event for Poirier versus McGregor 2, make it for the title. That obviously didn't happen. Dana was still talking to Khabib. But after that, some people were saying maybe Poirier should fight Chandler for the vacant belt. You know, that kind of makes sense now because Chandler, you know, he's done all this work in other organizations. Now he's come in, he's knocked out a top lightweight at the time in Dan Hooker. Why not match them up? And Dustin Poirier was very dismissive of Michael Chandler. And I think what I got from it was basically, you know, Chandler hasn't earned himself a title shot because he's only knocked out Dan Hooker, a guy I just beat, you know, 6 months prior because Poirier just beat Dan Hooker as well. And I think what it was a lack of respect for the body of work of Michael Chandler outside of the UFC, which I think a lot of people don't give him the respect for that, and he should. But then it was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen here? And then Poirier ended up fighting McGregor in the trilogy fight in July. So they ended up making that Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler fight. Michael Chandler was so close to becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. Obviously, we all know how that ended. He got TKO'd in the second round. And now we're here. Now we're here. Michael Chandler's now 2-2 in the UFC. He beat Dan Hooker. He beat Tony Ferguson. He lost to Charles Oliveira. He lost to Justin Gaethje. There's really no shame in those losses at all. And Dustin Poirier, since 2017, he's lost to 2 men. He lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov by rear naked choke in a title fight, and he lost to Charles Oliveira. That was his last fight in December by rear naked choke. There's no shame in those losses either. But both guys are kind of in a weird spot, especially Dustin Poirier. I don't think he's fighting for a title anytime soon unless Islam Makhachev is able to dethrone Charles Oliveira at UFC 280, which will take place in October. If Islam wins, it shakes up the whole division. Then that makes this fight potentially for, number one contender. I know that sounds a little bit crazy because you have Beneil Dariush versus Gamrot. You have Fiziev probably taking on Gaethje. That hasn't been announced yet. But you never know with the UFC, and it all has to do with timing. So the winner of this fight is going to be in a very good spot in the lightweight division, specifically if Islam Makhachev is able to dethrone Charles Oliveira. Now, let's say Charles Oliveira keeps the belt. I think Chandler would be in a better spot if he won versus Poirier, because Chandler almost defeated Charles Oliveira. He was so close to finishing him. Oliveira was able to survive, then comes out in the second round and finishes Michael Chandler early. I mean, what an amazing fight. If you haven't seen that fight at UFC 262, you need to go check it out. So as far as an early prediction for this fight, when I look at both guys, I see 2 very well-rounded fighters. It's really hard to pick out weaknesses for each guy. As far as strengths, you look at Michael Chandler. What are the strengths of Michael Chandler? It's the speed, it's the power, it's the explosiveness. When you look at Dustin Poirier, what are the advantages? It's the technical striking, it's the defensive responsibility, it's the durability, and the stamina. And when I look at those skill sets and I think, okay, who has the advantages where? I think Dustin Poirier is the more technical striker. I think Michael Chandler has better power, but I think Poirier is so defensively responsible and also has a way better gas tank than Michael Chandler. And maybe Michael Chandler has the wrestling advantage. Maybe he could take him down, submit him. Maybe he could take him down and just grapple him to a decision. But I just don't think that's super likely for 2 reasons. One, Michael Chandler's just not going to do that. He's not going to look to wrestle in this fight. Michael Chandler comes out to entertain in every performance. He's not going to look to wrestle. And 2, I believe one of the main reasons Michael Chandler doesn't use his wrestling as much as he probably could is because it tires him out. He gets tired too soon. It's very rare you see a guy with that crazy type power in their hands and they also have a Max Holloway gas tank. It just doesn't happen. And I really think, this isn't official yet either, but I really think if the UFC is booking this fight, it has to be 5 rounds. I mean, they did it for Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. They made that 5 rounds. They made Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards 5 rounds. If they do not make Poirier versus Chandler 5 rounds, that will be an absolute travesty. I mean, this is 2 elite world-class lightweights, and it needs to be 5 rounds, and it could be for title contention depending on how the division plays out. So it has to be 5 rounds. And when I look at a 5-round fight, I just find it hard to not see Dustin Poirier winning this fight and winning via TKO. I think Chandler's going to be explosive early. I think he's going to land some shots. But Poirier is so defensively responsible, he's just not going to be able to KO him. He's going to be shelling up against the cage. He's going to be chopping the legs of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's very heavy on that lead leg. And I think Poirier, as the fight goes on and Chandler starts to slow down a little bit, we've seen him in the Gaethje fight. And I know that was a crazy output by Chandler. He was completely exhausted by the 3rd round. And if this is 5 rounds, I'm sure Dustin Poirier is talking to the UFC, talking with his manager. I only want this fight to be 5 rounds because he could lose a 3-rounder. He could lose the first 2 rounds to Michael Chandler. There's no way he loses a 5-rounder. I just find that hard to believe. So my early prediction for this fight would be Dustin Poirier by TKO, maybe the 3rd or 4th round, as Chandler starts to tire out. And again, I don't see Chandler wrestling him. So there's no way that Chandler's stamina and chin, because he has a kind of a suspicious chin as well, I just don't see the stamina and the chin of Michael Chandler holding up to the technical striking of Dustin Poirier over 5 rounds. It's just not going to happen. Now, I'm super excited for this fight. I know Poirier's coming off a title loss against Charles Oliveira, but before that, he beat Conor McGregor up twice. I don't know what to really make of that because Conor McGregor's only won won one fight in the last 6 years, and that's against a washed up Cowboy Cerrone. But still, I think those were impressive wins. You know, some people try to take the one where Conor broke his leg away from him, but that was a 10-8 round, even with the leg break, doctor stoppage. But Poirier has fought the elite of the elite for the last, you know, how many years? He's just fought all the great fighters in the division. And Chandler was fighting very good competition in Bellator. And he's come in and he's fought, you know, Dan Hooker. Then he fought Charles Oliveira, who's now the champion. Then he fought Justin Gaethje, who's ranked in the top 5 as well. Then he fought Tony Ferguson. I get a lot of people are saying Tony Ferguson's washed up. I actually think Tony Ferguson is a lot better than people give him credit for. Tony Ferguson arguably won that first round against Michael Chandler before getting front kick KO'd. So I still actually give that as a solid win for Michael Chandler. But as far as a main event for the MSG card, UFC 281, I think the main event will be one of 2 fights. It will either be Israel Adesanya defending his middleweight title against Alex Pereira, which is an amazing matchup. I'm dying to see this fight. There's the backstory of Pereira has beaten him twice in kickboxing. Or if it's not the middleweight title fight, which that's what I really think it will be. If it's not that, it will most likely be John Jones versus Stipe Miocic for an interim heavyweight title, which who doesn't want to see that? John Jones in a heavyweight title fight, not even in a heavyweight title fight, just John Jones fighting at heavyweight. I'm holding out hope that there's maybe just a shred of chance that Ngannou is ready to return by November and we get Francis Ngannou defending his heavyweight belt against John Jones rather than the whole Stipe Miocic matchup. But I really believe those are the 3 best options. I believe one of those fights will headline Madison Square Garden, and I think it'll be a stacked card. The UFC always likes to stack the Madison Square Garden cards. But let me know what you guys think about all this. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.